Hi, Dr. Regan Robertson, CCO of Productive Dentist Academy here, and I have a question for you. Are you finding it hard to get your team aligned to your vision, but you know you deserve growth just like everybody else? That's why we've created the PDA Productivity Workshop. For nearly 20 years, PDA workshops have helped dentists just like you align their teams, get control of scheduling, and create productive practices that they love walking into every day. Just imagine how you will feel when you know your schedule is productive, your systems are humming, and your team is aligned to your vision. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. We can help. Visit productivedentist.com/workshop. That's productivedentist.com/workshop to secure your seats now.
I like mentoring, and that was evident with like me doing CEREC mentor group down in Phoenix, where I would go help, let's say 2 to 4 times a year on a weekend course for other dentists explaining how to use the CEREC machine, because I had just learned it. So it was fun mastering it by re-explaining it, because mastery involves, being able to teach it too, right? Absolutely. That's the idea too. Also the word doctor being teacher, and you get to become a better teacher by mastering your subject.
Welcome to the Everyday Practices Podcast. I'm Regan Robertson, and my co-host, Dr. Chad Johnson, and I are on a mission to share the stories of everyday dentists who generate extraordinary results using practical, proven methods you can take right into your own dental practice. If you're ready to elevate patient care and produce results that are anything but ordinary, buckle up and listen in.
This is different. This one with our hosts, Jason and Regan, and I'm the guest.
That's right.
Wow. Yes. Oh, that's cool, Chad. Nice.
I mean, so you have to own it.
Oh, I'm owning it, bro. I'm owning it. Chad, who are you? Who is Chad Johnson? What is Chad Johnson? What does Chad Johnson do? What does Chad Johnson contribute to the world? Who is Chad? Who is Dr. Chadwick Aaron Johnson?
I'm going to give a deep answer. You're not expecting this.
Yeah, no, I am expecting it. That's
okay.
Why it's such a broad question.
I'm trying in small ways to become less me and more for others.
Cool, man. Yeah.
Are you trying to have an ego death? Is that what that means?
Yeah, that would be one way to describe it. I've not heard of that per se, but I like that. Yeah. So and Jason, this. Well, Regan, you as well. Parenthood brings this about, right?
Yeah.
Where you realize that, it's not as much about you. And you want, I don't know, like, Regan, too, I've got, some speaking, potentials, like, some engagements and stuff like that here and there that I really in the last few years have just dialed back from interest into like really trying to seek that out when it's just like,
that's true.
I enjoy the quieter life than you'd think. I'm loud in personality, but at the same time, I have enjoyed, dialing it back. And it's the goal isn't necessarily like death to self per se, but then again, the more that there is of that, the more that I'm accomplishing, I think, what I want to do.
Yeah, man, that makes sense. What do you want to do?
That is the better question, because I think that changes over time. I think Victoria from Productive Dentist Academy asked this of us at the last workshop for IGP. And one of my answers on the paper, she had us pull out a paper, and one of my answers was, simply to bring glory to God. And that is bigger than dentistry. And though for me, that involves dentistry because it's the way that I get to interact with patients and people. But I tell a lot of patients when we're just, chewing the fat and stuff in the chair, like, hey, what are you up to today? Well, I'm picking up the grandkids. And I go, grandparenting has to be the coolest gig in the world, because I find parenting to be difficult because I have to be the kind of guy I don't want to be. Like, I have to be the disciplinarian, like, hey, I didn't say to do that. And then I'm thinking, why did I say that? I'm like, man, it sounds so stupid. But I mean, someone has to, because someone has to teach the kids the right way, right? So you have to be authoritative. I'm not a fan of that. Like, Jason, you never saw that in dental school, because I just
I never saw you be a parent in dental school. No, I didn't.
Correct. Well, or that attitude at all.
He wasn't a teen father, so yeah, logistically
right. Well,
speaking.
but it was more of just a fun loving free spirit kind of guy. And then
But
so
now you still are, man.
I am, and at heart. And so what I'm looking forward to, I tell the grandparents at my office, I just go, I can't wait to be a grandparent. And sometimes I wonder if I'll want to retire from dentistry early and then just be like a grandpa daycare. And we called it Grampy daycare or something like that. And
are you going to be Grampy? Yes.
I don't know. Yeah.
I vote for this. Yes. Grampy. That's a good one.
Then you get to be fun again and stuff like that. And you get to, you don't have to have the daily grind of the disciplinarian and the authoritative this and that. And so I don't know, I'm kind of looking forward to that. So, but then again, I know that I look forward to that, but I don't know much about what that will look like. I mean, so it's almost just too far away to know. It'd be like asking a kindergartner, what do you want to do with your life? They might have an answer, but it's not the answer. It's just, a possibility. And it, my girl wants to, Daphne, she wants to raise puppies and stuff like that. I'm like, that sounds neat and all, and it's a possibility. But is that likely going to be what she does? Only time will tell, but it's just one of a million possibilities. I don't know. That's a really weird answer, but I don't know. I don't know.
Well, is that you went down a bunny trail. So I'll reel it back a little bit. You said that your role would be to bring glory to God. So how do you define bringing glory to God? That
could really be anything. And the beauty of that is the liberty that affords you is a lot. When your goal is to, I'll tell you what, it would be the opposite of bringing glory to yourself. Because in America and humans just want to bring glory to ourselves. And, we're a lot of times focused in naturally, I do the same, on what we need, like when your hunger starts building up, you're hungry, you get hangry, and then you satisfy that need, and then you're satisfied and you move on to your next need and your next want. And there's different, levels of that. What is that? Maslow's hierarchy and stuff where, there might be neater wants than base needs. But at the same time, the more that we get over our desire to fulfill self, and again, yes, you need to eat. Yes, you need to drink some water and get some sleep and stuff like that. Sure. But the opposite of that, of bringing glory to God, there's a lot of liberty to that, because now instead of having to always feed yourself, you're looking at, okay, what is the bigger picture? Taking care of others, doing His will, which would just mean, I suppose within different religious beliefs and stuff like that, doing what's said of you, whether it be in the Bible, the Quran, the Book of Mormon, all that kind of stuff. That there are different ways to look at what that means. For me, wow, this is deep. For me, the bringing glory to God would be when within the Christian faith, when you are saved, you are thankful for what God has done for you in spite of who you are. So you don't earn it. It's kind of the way Christianity looks at it is that they're unique in that you don't earn your respect from God. And so He gives it to you in the first place. And then from there, out of gratitude, you respond to like someone that's basically brought you out of the mud. And you want to do what this king who took care of you wants you to do. So it's out of gratitude that you do it. And I suppose coming out of Thanksgiving season, going into Christmas, that gives you the kind of the idea where a lot of outsiders, the way I see it, look at a Christian faith like that we're trying to follow rules so that way you can please God, so that way you can earn points from Him so you're good to go. And I believe that some people think that, but in fact, it's kind of the opposite. He takes care of you from the beginning, and then you respond in kind with trying to do what this king who took care of you wants you to do. I don't know what to make of that, but there's my response.
It's awesome, Chad. Awesome. That's the response, man. That's incredible. I was like, yeah, the best response of all time, I'd say.
Okay, well, we're done. Thanks.
Wow.
There's the
Wow.
Let's,
Was there?
Go
Was
ahead.
there
Go
a-
ahead, Regan.
Okay. Was there a moment in time where you were reflecting on your life as it was, and you had a moment where you thought, "Oh, I'm bringing glory to myself, or I'm kind of an ego of myself, and it's time to shift gears"?
I'll tell you, I had a convertible, and this was in high school. And so I had some music playing. This music was, I was going on a singing tour with a choir that coming summer, and I was learning the music. Okay. I was learning the words and stuff like that. And I came up to this intersection, and I still remember on William Street in East University in Des Moines. I was coming down the hill. It's just weird that I remember a lot about this. And the song was count the cost, take up the cross, and follow him. There's imagery there. And the words were, don't be ashamed, to follow Jesus. And when I came to that intersection, the song's playing, and I'm just like, I don't know, this is kind of weird that like people can, I'm turning it down, and I'm realizing that I'm learning the words, don't be ashamed to follow Jesus. And I'm ashamed in turning down the sound to this, because I'm like, I don't want people to hear this, and then I realized, wait a second, that says a lot about me. And now that was at age 17. Okay. Was I done dying to self at that point? No, it's a lifetime of learning how to do that. Right. But that was, I think, the pivotal moment when I realized I was like, I'm ashamed. I'm learning a song to sing about not being ashamed. And yet, if I'm honest with myself, I am. Why? And I was just like, I didn't know what I wanted people to think about me, at that intersection. And it's really weird. Like that became a moment of deciding, is this something that I want to be ashamed of and, chuck it off? Or do I lean into it and find a way to enjoy God's presence and be with him, and where I'm not ashamed about it? And that's probably where it started. And Jason, then, a few years later in dental school, when you see me being comfortable, being who I am, and it's just like, why is this guy so comfortable being the way that he is? I think there were little points along the way where I was just like, you know what, I am different, and I have to acknowledge that. It's just I can't not be.
Well, I'm glad you came to that realization at some point and got to share who you are with everyone else, as opposed to being like, hey, this is who I am, but I'm not going to actually let you know that.
Yeah. Yeah, because most people try and fit in, and I've just what's cool is I see it in my kids too. They don't really fit in. And I really like that. I'm just like, that's cool. Like, I wonder, if there's any genetic predisposition to that too, or if they're just culturally within our family learning that. But my kids are kind of mini me's in one regard. And it's fun to see that sometimes I'm just like, man, you don't go with the mold either, do you? So.
You know what I love? I asked who's Chad Johnson? What do you do? Who is Chad Johnson? And you didn't even say anything about dentistry. It was like, just went on. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm a dentist and I do all this stuff and I do, but I mean, you didn't even say that. It's not even a by the way. It's not even really it's part of who you see, how you see yourself, I'm
just a people person, and like, I like serving and helping other people. So the fact that I get a capacity to do that, and I have to admit, it makes great money. So it affords for us to be able to do cool stuff. Mm. Yes, that's awesome. I mean, so I'm really thankful for that. But yeah, no, it's just one facet. I mean, sometimes I remember, people are like, well, what happens if you get hurt and you can't do dentistry anymore? I'm just like, well, then I'll do something else really to the best of my ability. It doesn't faze me. It's like, oh no, if I can't be a dentist. You remember, Regan, Brian Turani, who fell off the ladder, hanging Christmas lights or whatever it was, broke both of his wrists. And then he decides, he's just like, I'm going to be a pilot. I can't do dentistry anymore. And so I'm going to be a pilot. I would do the same thing, whether it's piloting or who knows what.
I think he just got one of his big certifications too, Prince. Yeah. Did he get it, or is he like right on the cusp of getting it?
I think he, according to his Facebook post, it seems like he got it.
I really like, so listeners, go back and there is Dr. Brian Turani. It's a great podcast episode. And yes, Jason, I hear Chad saying really that he doesn't tie his identity to being a dentist, which that's a very, 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 I think the majority common problem with anybody, not even just in dentistry, but with your job title, you'd end up tying your identity to it. So when you unexpectedly lose it, what do you fall back on? And I feel like, Chad, that's what you're saying is you have a faith that's very strong that protects you so that if you were to lose anything in your life, you still feel safe. You'll still be taken care of, even if it goes all the way down to your physical body. That's what I heard you say.
Yeah. But I have to admit, to not revere myself too much on this, because it's like, I do admit that I take a lot of identity in being a dentist, and there's a pride to it. And now the problem is what to do with pride. You need a little bit of pride to be able to not be like, oh, I can't do anything. You don't want to be a total loser that can't, if you were just like, well,
hey, some people suffer with that a little bit. Excuse me.
no, for sure. But this doesn't have to do with being a dentist or not. But if someone even just said, hey, I think you do a good job, blank. And if you just said, well, I can't do it. That's just false humility. I'm not talking about that. So you have to have a smidge of, personal responsibility and pride in that. But at the same time, when it builds up enough that you're like, you know what? I am awesome. It's like, wait a second. So
Jason, Chad wakes up, looks in the mirror and is like,
I am awesome.
I am awesome.
Wakes up in the morning and he pees excellence. Right?
Do you know what's, I don't even look at myself in the mirror in the morning.
That stream is strong.
I get up in the morning. I don't even look at myself in the mirror. I get ready in the dark. It's kind of funny. I just go out the door. What you see is what you get.
And the hair just looks like that every time.
Yeah, actually, I towel dry it and I go like this, and there it is.
What are you, are you a Lego? You're at Lego. You're like the Lego movie. Everything is awesome. And it just stays.
I do love that movie. It's so funny.
All right, Chad, here's a question that I get sometimes. I get this, I'd say weekly or bi-weekly. Someone will ask hey, why did you become a dentist? Or why are you doing this? Or something like that.
Still to this day, this is constantly.
I still constantly get this. And I don't think it's that great of a question, because it's kind of hey, we made this decision. I mean, how old were you when you made this decision, Chad? Because you made the decision to be a dentist prior to entering undergrad.
Right.
You were what?
I was in 8th grade.
13.
Yeah. So
did you see a job fair or something?
But I think the appropriate question for you, Chad, is it's hey, you made this decision when you were in 8th grade,
right?
Be a dentist. What still motivates you? What still pushes you? What still challenges you about what you're doing to do it?
So I'm one of the weirdos that chose to be any profession and then actually stuck with it. Because a lot of people, when they're in 3rd grade, choose to be a veterinarian. In the 8th grade, they want to be an attorney. In 12th grade, they want to be a doctor. And then, they become an accountant. It's all over the place, right? and that's okay. I'm just one of the weirdos. So I went from wanting to be a Marine like my dad to, no, I want to be a dentist. I got my front tooth bumped playing basketball, and
there it is.
Yep. And I had to visit an endodontist, and this one dentist came in early and, saw me on an emergent basis. There was this dentist in my church that I really looked up to. And I was like, he had what I wanted. I was just he seems to have family time. He gets to own his own business, call his own shots, work when he wants. I was just like, that's cool. And then the crisis moment, I went to my algebra teacher and I said, I've decided I want to be a dentist, so I don't need to know math. Is what I told him. Yeah. And he laughed. And he said, well, Chad, how are you going to do physics? And I was like, oh, that's a good question. He said, how are you going to do biology and chemistry? I was like, Brad, you're right. And it was the first moment actually that I decided that I wanted to start trying in school, because up until then, I really hadn't tried much. And so I thought, I'm going to start trying because I wanted to be this dentist, and it was cool because I had this excuse that I wasn't doing well in math. And I was like, you know what? I won't need to know math. And then he's like, yes, you will. And I was like, wait a second, something that I want. And then there's this obstacle in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want it bad enough that I want to keep on going. And so then I was like, well, I guess I'll start trying in school. And I did. I started trying in school, and I never considered myself a smart student. And we explained like this, I think, last time. Yeah. And I just was a hard worker. And so I was like, and then come to find out, I started working hard and I was doing well with the smart kids. And I was like, who knew if I try hard, I can actually like be one of these, like I can be with one of these smart kids. And then at some point, it was actually, I think in Spanish, that they were like, hey, how are you studying for this test? And I was like, why are you asking me? I'm not a smart kid like you, and I like that they were asking me how I was, doing well, and so that, to get back to your question though, that was kind of the backstory. So what motivates me today though?
Because it's been 25 years almost now that you've been a dentist. I mean,
right.
and you're doing this, what
right.
I mean? You're still,
well, the job is invigorating. I mean,
14 years old or something.
So from 2005, when we graduated, I think the first 5 or 6 years I was doing the same dentistry as the day out of school. There wasn't much. I was doing CE, but at the same time, it was starting to get into a rut of, I was just like, it's just the same dentistry, PFM crown, core buildup, filling here and there. It was just stuff, And 2011, I started, I bought a CEREC machine. I started going to American Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry stuff. That's when a couple of years later, I was like, hey, we're finishing up with our AGD fellowship. And Jason and I, wrapped that up together because, he was like, well, dude, I'll finish with you. We'll do the fellowship graduation, whatever they call it, together. And so we did that ceremony together in Nashville. And that started my process of being like, okay, I get it now. Like I can be a better dentist if I break out of the mold of the rudimentary stuff they taught me in dental school. And that's not stopped. And so before we started recording, I was talking about the vampire facials, that I do and stuff like that with PRP that Dr. Garg taught me and stuff like that. That's just one facet of it. So it's just cool that I have a unique skill set now to be able to help patients out be the healthiest they can. And PRP facials is kind of a lame example considering, that it's, no, Regan, just hear me out, because there's really cool stuff we can do, like biopsy something and find cancer. And, that's really cool. That's significant. A facial is really cool technology and it's really cool applied, but it's not saving lives or anything like that. But it's still an example where, using PRP, PRF applications within the mouth to make it heal quicker, really cool stuff, for bone grafting, for implantology, all that stuff. So I don't know, that's the specific dentistry stuff of what gets me excited is the fact that, you can lean into learning more. I think after that, it's having actually the wealth to be able to coach my girls' basketball team, to be able to go to my son's archery, this and that, to vicariously live through them by taking them to do cool stuff that I never got to do growing up. So I've taken them to, for example, this last summer, we went out to Utah and did all the national parks out there, finished out in the Grand Canyon. I never saw any of those until now. I never saw any of those. And, that my kids are doing that. This next summer, we're doing the last couple trips, and Gabe, my oldest, will have been to all 50 states. And that,
wow.
And it's just fun to be able to do that kind of stuff and stuff that I never got to be able to do. So that's all.
How was Delaware?
It was a pass through. Yeah.
I was just trying to gauge, how much did we see those 50 states? The expression that I made over the vampire facial wasn't for the facial. I had a connection moment. And Jason, I'm super happy that you asked that question, because Chad is definitely a voracious learner, but also a really good study. So I have talked about you, Chad, quite a bit. This in different circles because of the languages that, I've talked about it a lot on the podcast, how you just seem to soak up knowledge. But I think too, when you say what continues to motivate you, just like Bruce, you're in an environment where you can keep stoking your learning fire. So you're never going to be bored. You strike me as an individual that if you're sitting, you're going to figure out how to whittle a car out of wood. Like you will not sit still. So do you feel like it gives you the opportunity to still continue to learn each year? Are you planning out your CE? Like, I'm going to take this on this year and wait a couple of years and then I'm ready to take on another thing? Or do you feel like you can coast? Like, I've learned enough now and I can
been there before.
Put it to play.
I hate to say this because people aren't going to be expecting this. I've been there before. And right now I'm kind of in a coasting pattern.
No, it's okay. Victoria, our CEO, told me this year, 2024 is my coasting pattern. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I told her, I'm like, okay, what am I going to sign up for? What am I going to learn this year? And I'm like, I've just been doing it for many years, like every year. And she said, why don't we just ground down and actually, let's train the team, the things that let's give you the opportunity to use your expertise. And I was like, okay, I think that's good.
So in my office, I think it was the year of 2022 was a moratorium of change.
That's right.
Change. No change. And the idea was, let's perfect what we do know in the systems and everything like that. I'm not going to throw a new ball into the, like, hey, we've learned to juggle 5 balls. Here's 6, So I was like, it's a moratorium. And my staff, they loved it. They were just like, thank God. And, and also right now, I think one of my goals was to get my fellowship and implement all this stuff and go to the CE while my kids were young. So my take home is, if you're a young career dentist and your kids are little, that you can travel and they might not remember that you were gone, to do that while you can, because like right now with my kids in high school and junior high and stuff like that, I'm trying to be around more. And then, so like, I'm kind of on a coasting pattern on purpose. And yes, I plan out my CEs. Like next year, I have 2 courses planned in November and September, stuff like that. So I have that planned in, but it's not exactly like a full throttle. And then when the kids are out of the house, I'll probably lean in one more time, like real heavy for a few years and max out with stuff, and then maybe coast again before retirement or something like that. So the way I look at it, like when I started, I graduated at age 25 and I was like, I've got 40-ish years. And so we're coming up on the 20th, year. And at that 20 year, I'm going to celebrate halftime. Like I look at it like a basketball game in 4 quarters.
Of course you are.
Yeah, we did. At the 10-year mark, smart. we had a 10th anniversary barbecue, and we celebrated the fact that nothing other than just that I had done 10 years. It was the end of the first quarter so far, and so I've been celebrating, like that, and I'll celebrate the 20th anniversary. We'll probably do ribs again, and I actually in my mind I know that I want to ship them up from Pappy's Smokehouse in St. Louis. I've got all this kind of mentally planned out. Jason, you've got to try Pappy's Smokehouse.
Well, I was going to say, invite me out for that, man. I'll come
Heck yeah. I'll tell you a little bit deeper though, Regan. My mom has commented before that when my dad retired, she's like, he doesn't have any hobbies. He doesn't have any, like, he just kind of, and it's, I suppose you could look at it as one fault of my dad's. On the flip side, I think my dad is easily content. And so he just, what'd you do today? I read, this and that. That's all. And
there is an art to just being, and it does.
I don't know
trauma. It's a trauma response. I've heard. I have no psychological background, but I mean, I've heard that it can be to force as a form of coping, that you have to always be busy, that you can't just sit and be. So I guess I give a lot of leeway in retirement. If you want to sit, you get to do whatever you want.
Yes. And, someday that sounds amazing. Right now, I don't know if I could, but it's funny. I do audio Bible, and how it talks, the last couple chapters that I've been in the New Testament, it talks about being a busybody, and not that that's a good thing. And I found that interesting, that Paul was saying, they're busybodies. And he's like, it's not a compliment, so you have to find yourself, like, you could think, if I'm going to be spiritual, I'm going to really lean into it and be busy and stuff and take care of the world. And Paul himself was just like, no, they're busybody, so it doesn't say that always you have to be busy just to be godly or awesome or whatever. So I think there's something to be said about it, but it did affect me in that I was just like, I don't want to end up like that. So I want to, have a passion for life. So,
well, you know what you're describing too. I think if you didn't go through Hero on a Mission, but you've heard me talk about Hero on
Of
a
course.
Mission. It's the Donald Miller course.
yes.
He's very pragmatic about he approaches. So he starts off the entire course, Jason, with asking you the question, when are you going to die? Put a date on it. So he says, I put 85 on mine. Okay, so let's backtrack this. I've got 35 years. What am I going to accomplish? So he basically takes his life and makes it a business plan. And you're writing at your obituary. I mean, it gets really deep for a while, but the whole goal of it is to help you set up your milestones. And Chad, you just displayed, you're very excellent at setting up those milestones so that you can celebrate and recognize and look back at how far you've come. And then you seem to have that handle on mortality. It's not forever.
Oh, yeah.
So you're very thoughtful about it.
Well, I talked about that with my wife when COVID hit, when I just said, I realized that people that are not aware of where they'll spend eternity when they're unsure, of how they sit with God, that they were very worried about COVID and the fact that they could die in 2 weeks. And I was just like, Sarah, I'm not worried. And I think it's because I know where I sit with God. And I noticed that there are people that are comfortable. And then there's other people that are worried to death. Why are they worried? Because they thought they were immortal up until COVID. And then COVID hits and it's like, what do you mean there's thousands of people dying? What do you mean I could die like in 2 weeks? I'm not ready for this. Like, and they realized, yes, you are mortal. And can you imagine this? This is timeless because the bubonic plague probably had the same thing when it hit Europe. They were probably like, what do you mean? Like I could, like this is a human response.
Yep. I was one of the early ones. I was one of the early ones to get COVID, and I didn't realize that I had COVID. It was March of 2020, and I was in bed for weeks. But I remember I just laid there, and I did not have any fear. I just thought, this is really all right, this is interesting. We'll see what happens here. But I can't say I'm definitely not fearless. It's about my kids. I worry all the time, constantly. Sure. I was definitely worried for them. So yeah.
Sure.
And I like, at first I was getting ready to argue with you and be like, no, not everybody just thinks that they're immortal, but no. Because
I mean, it's a broad brushstroke. It's an overgeneralization, but by and large, there's people that are either comfortable with the fact of their mortality or not.
Well, when it came to my children, it was very crystal clear. I was like, absolutely not. That is unacceptable. And because I do think of that. I mean, in the terms of immortal being, they go after you. I go first. So COVID did make me focus and realize that and kind of put that front of mind, like that's right. That anything could happen to anyone at any time. And you get the call. So it's very interesting. Wow. We went really deep, Jason, really fast with Chadwick.
I'm going to change gears a little bit here, Chad. But
Jason, before you change gears, I thought I'd say what's funny too is with the enigma that is Chadwick Aaron Johnson is the weird thing is I sometimes can be playful in a superficial mode, and then all of a sudden it's like, how did we go from that to like the gravity of all gravities? It's like death and God and life and stuff. And it's like, well, I mean, it's fun to dabble in all those. Like I like superficial and fun, and then I'm not just a static character where it's like, wait a second, he went really deep. It's like, yeah, I know, I'm sorry, but all right. So your thought.
It's the mental enema so looking forward to being able to
interview you today, which is why it's so awesome. And I feel bad taking this topic like mortality and Chad talking about mortality and his views on it and where the world is. And I'm like, all right, now let's bring it down to business. Let's talk about business, But that's what I want to do, man. I want to talk about business a little bit.
Let's do it.
I mean, because Chad, he was, so we graduated in a class of 75 students from dental school. Chad was the only dental student to start his practice day one, still doing that practice, still celebrating those quarter wins at with barbecues and things like that. But really, number one, obviously the business mind that Chad has isn't a mind that I would possess or that anyone else. I don't want to say anyone else, because I mean, you have
it's rare
Elon Musk's in your whatever, but I mean, you
wait, Jason, he opened his practice in 2005.
Yes,
right out of school.
I did not know that, baby. That's crazy.
Right?
Keep going, Jason. You have such beautiful questions planned. But that just blows my mind. I didn't know that. when I met him in 2011, you'd only been practicing. And no, I did not math the math. I can't believe that. Wow. Jeez. Okay.
So Chad, a
Yes.
business mind like yourself.
Yes.
Now you're wearing a few hats now, right? You're doing things with Productive Dentist over here. You're doing your practice. Walk us through, man. What do you, when you talk about like, giving back and things like that, and, but like, what's your goal with this hat over here with Productive Dentist? What's your goal with this hat over here with what you do in your daily grind in work? And fill me in, man.
So I like mentoring, and that was evident with like me doing CEREC mentor group down in Phoenix, where I would go help, let's say 2 to 4 times a year on a weekend course for other dentists explaining how to use the CEREC machine, because I had just learned it. So it was fun mastering it by re-explaining it, because mastery involves, being able to teach it too, right? That's the idea too. Also the word doctor being teacher, and you get to become a better teacher by mastering your subject. Just as we saw with your interview, as you're mastering sleep, you're spending more time in it. So you're more involved and you're more comfortable with being able to explain those thoughts as opposed to a novice. And that's the way it should be. When I went into Productive Dentist Academy, I really gained a lot of insight from Dr. Bruce on how to be a boss and how to be a leader and everything like that. And I think some of it was already head knowledge of mine, but it became more heart knowledge that I was like, okay, I'm willing to apply this. And I want to help other dentists get there. Like, so I was in the sense of mastering it. I would, I asked, could I come down and hang out with the other dentists that are learning this? And then they're like, do you want to do an hour of the lecture? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. Why not? And being able to engage with questions and help people through, I would explain, I'd be like, all right, now when we're talking about scheduling to production, I was really on the edge at first when I learned this. I was like, nah, this isn't the way. And then I realized, so then, telling the dentists, so that moment you're sitting there with your arms crossed, to some regard, whether physically or just, there's a wall and you don't believe this. And yet I was there too, until I realized, oh, wait, there's a few ways that you can break the rules. And then as you do scheduling to production, you also then are able to take more time to talk with patients when you have downtime to be able to treatment plan. So that way it feeds your schedule. And that was my aha moment where I was like, the breakthrough, when I was like, okay, I didn't get it at first. And so it's one example where I love coming down, eating good Texas brisket and barbecue, and talking with other dentists about, their struggles and like getting through it together. And so it's mastery for me, as being able to learn with them and then reteach it. And this podcast is the same thing. My effort is to give people who are listening to this an insight into changing how they rewiring how they think about something in a good way, not as though it has to be contrarian to what they think, but in the going, you're right, Chad, that reinforces my thought, but I had a qualm about it and now I see it. Okay, I'm willing to apply that business principle. So business, clinical, whatever. I don't know if that answered your question. Sorry.
Sounds awesome, man. Love it. Regan, what should we dive into with Chad? We have all this stuff. I almost think we should take it back towards mortality again. That was awesome.
Well, hey, before we go diving into death again, let me explain something too. What made me an anomaly growing up was I worked at a water park in junior high and high school and in the summers. And the really cool thing was our boss, there were about 120 employees. But our boss would let the teens that had some leadership, potential, be the managers of the place. And so at age 16, I was running the water park. And again, this is the 90s, right? And so I don't know if that would happen much these days, but it was cool because it gave me a ton of responsibility. And because I'm working with 8 cash registers, I'm working with 1,000 customers a day. I'm in charge of 60 employees at any given time. I remember I just had my swim trunks on, no t-shirt on, and a pith helmet, and if you can picture it. And so this one woman was upset, and she was like, "Hey, I want to talk with the person who runs this place." I was like, "Yeah, that's me." And she goes, "No, I want to talk to the person who's in charge of the whole place." And I said, "Yeah, that's me." And she says, "No, like the owner." I said, "Well, the owner's in South Carolina. He put me in charge. How can I help you?" And it's just weird that at age 16, I'm like, the buck stops here. I run this place, and it kind of like this mom was like, "What in the world? Who would put this?" It kind of this shocked look on her face. But at the same time, I hadn't stopped to realize, oh yeah, it's a weird opportunity that I had to be in charge of, this 7-acre water park that was, it was just an amazing opportunity for 8 years that I worked there to be able to be in charge of, training employees, all that stuff. So then when I took microeconomics and macroeconomics in undergrad, like they clicked. And so, though, if sometimes it's like, where did you learn business? It's like at a water park,
Yeah.
So
yeah,
just thought I'd throw that
micro
in
and macroeconomics, which somebody like me never took.
Yeah, true.
That's awesome.
True. Yeah.
How do you that opportunity that you had was incredible. And
Yeah.
I agree with you. I don't know that many kids would get that nowadays.
Great.
How do you plan on, or do you and Sarah, do you guys plan on helping each of your kids have those types of opportunities? Because that anecdote totally gives me a window inside, because you are an individual that I find to take full responsibility for things.
Yeah.
And that to me is not super common.
Yeah. I struggle with that because I want to take cool vacations. And if Gabe, for example, has a job where he has to be, there on Saturday, I'm like, I want to leave on Saturday, So my problem is I'm just like, no, I want like the selfish part of me. I'm like, no, I want to spend that time with the family. And then here you've got this piddle job paying $8 an hour. And how about I just give you $8? And here becomes the problem of the rich dentist, bailing the kids out, right? It's like, I'm like, I just want to give them, here's $8. Come on, let's go. But at the same time, some of those lessons, if I hired him to work here, he's going to have an easy boss, me, because, if he doesn't do a good enough job, I'll try and act like a dad about it. But at the same time, it's not the same as an external boss that's objective. And I remember it was almost funny because the owner to the water park, one time I was using the golf cart and I was picking up trash, and I was he let us use the golf cart to bring the trash up to the trash bins. And I was just like, man, if I load this thing down, I can get done sooner, right? Rather than taking 2 garbage bags at a time, I put 8 things, like on that. So I loaded the thing up on the seats, but there's, they have these slushies and the garbage bags are perfing it, and the juice is dripping out onto that.
Ew.
So yeah, so he's all grossed out by this. He calls me over and he's like, Chad, I want to take you on this golf cart. He's like, have a seat right there. Well,
Yeah.
Have a seat in the juice, Chad.
but here's the deal. So here's where it backfired him. I sat down and I was like, all right, let's go. And he's like, all right. So Chad, here's the deal. I was hoping you'd realize that you just sat in garbage juice, but but he told me to, I did, I was like, okay. And so I just sat in the garbage juice, and he's like, you kind of spoiled my point, but here's the point. No one other than you wants to sit in this garbage juice. So you can't be putting the garbage bags on the golf cart, because just make multiple trips. And I just kind of thought that was funny because he was trying to teach me a lesson. So with Gabe at the same time, I might be able to be hard on him, but it's not going to be the same as that kind of boss that's being, like, hey dude, have a seat in the garbage juice, and having some of those hard lessons. So my dichotomy is what I do lately is I tell my kids, we find books and online courses like Khan Academy and some other stuff where I find the courses and I incentivize them, because I tell them, I say, all right, you do this course on pre-calculus, and I'll give you $100. If you finish these books, and I tell all the kids that we've been doing this for years, I'll give you $5 for each of these books that you finish. This one's a chapter book. I'll give you 10. This one's a patty cake book. I'm going to give you $1 for this book. And we price them all out. And I tell them that in the summer, you finish these books and I'll pay you, this money. And so that becomes their job, because I'm trying to give them the books for the wisdom to learn the stuff, but they're not old enough to have a job. But Gabe keeps on going, I want a job, Dad. And I'm like, he's probably right. I probably should allow him to have a job just so he can have that external force of learning what the job is like. So he's 14 now. It's coming. And I've been dreading this moment.
Well, can he legally work in Iowa at 14? I don't know what the laws are. Oh, you can. Seasonal work.
Yep. Seasonal jobs. Yeah.
I think that was I don't know, Jason, if you knew that about Chad, but that was one of my favorite mind shifts. It was a few years ago that I learned that. He said, my kids' jobs are two things, education and play. So I reimburse them for education. So of course I totally stole it. I was like, that is a great idea. Like it helps. We talk a lot about the challenge of learning in and of itself and being able to work through frustration and everything. And I definitely took that as a note from you. But let him get a job.
Jason, here's a point.
Nothing the same.
Do you remember in biochemistry, our first semester of dental school?
Yeah,
that was. I know.
23 years ago. Yeah, I remember it like that. But yeah.
Well, but I'll tell you, I was with you when 9/11 happened. I mean, I flashed right back to that, and just walking right down that street from that library where we took the test, and but biochemistry, I didn't do so hot on it, and it was the first time I had ever been exposed to that. I did 3 years of undergrad, so I never took biochemistry in undergrad. And were you the same? Did you do 3 years undergrad?
Yeah, me and you, we both.
Yeah. And so I had never seen this stuff before, and I actually had to do remediation on it because I was doing so poorly on it. So they had a tutor set up for me to help me learn how to study this kind of stuff, because they're like, there's 20 amino acids, dude. It's not hard, okay? Like, just learn it and do it. And I'm having trouble with it, and I realized if I would have taken this class early. So actually, Regan, this comes back to the book idea. Is in my mind, if Gabe can take a pre-calc class as a 9th grader or something like that when he's actually taking it for a grade in 12th grade, or in college, if he's taking a biochem kind of thing, but he's dabbled in Khan Academy with it before, that even if he didn't finish the course, that it won't be the first time that he's seen it. And so
and I wonder if it makes your brain more pliable. Like when you're learning a language, when you're younger, you're more easily ready to adapt. So that they'll have some memory. Memory will come back to them a little bit if they.
Yep. So it's funny. The idea that I'm applying right now actually goes back to my trauma of biochem sucking so bad for me that I was like, man, if my kids could take, this class beforehand, then when they're actually, taking it, it won't be the first time. They'll be like, of course, Jason, some of those guys that were a smidge older, a couple of like the dads in our class, that were 30 at the time or whatever, they would smoke the test because they're like, oh yeah, I was I did biochemistry for a job for a couple of years. This is cake. And I'm like, I was so jealous because I'm like, I've never seen this stuff before. So
what kind of jobs are in biochemistry? Can you give me an example?
No, I don't know, but I know that I know they were taking
biochemistry jobs
and stuff. Who knows? They might have been working at the university or a hospital or something like that.
Most of the people who are applying and trying to get into school like that are doing jobs related to trying to get into school like that. So
okay.
Good point.
Yeah. But those struggles, Chad, are what shaped you into who you are today. Right. Correct. I mean, without the struggles, you know what I mean? If it's all a cakewalk, it's all, you know what I mean? So it's good to, it's kind of like growing grapes for wine, right? So the grapes are supposed to struggle a little bit to turn into good wine. If it's like an optimum place for growth, they grow and they don't taste as good, But yeah, so it's kind of like introducing a little bit of, like you said, rich dentist. You can obviously give your kids a lot of opportunities that we didn't have, that we couldn't do. But then at the same time, we need to introduce some things to actually challenge these kids make it work, where not everything can be that cakewalk. And so, so I like that. Hey, that's part of that. Regan, are you liking this?
I love it. You're totally right. Yes, I love it.
So, I mean, that's one of the hard
in a
things.
healthy way. Because I'll tell you, this every episode I'm learning something. My go-to, and I sound like an old person immediately, is when you were a kid, you should be grateful for it. Like right now, one of my kids wants their very own bathroom. I'm like, this house has 3 full bathrooms. I had 1 for everyone. What are you talking about? It didn't even have a fan. So I like what you're saying, Jason. Yeah. How do you introduce it, but in a positive way, like in a really a way that's a healthy challenge, not a naggy Reagan saying, you should be grateful.
Right.
Chad.
On that note.
If you had to impart some of your secrets, do you have secrets? Do you have secrets like that? Obviously you talked about God, you talked about mortality, you talked about religion, you talked about family, you talked about kids, but if I were like, hey, Chad, what makes you unique? Because you're one of the most unique people I've ever met in my life, like in a great way. I mean, you're one of these fantastic people. Yeah, I know. But like the way that you impact people's lives is meaningful. And I don't know if that's intentional or unintentional or just part of who you are, but so the question is, Chad, what's your secret?
If I had to figure one facet of my secret, because I don't know if you can formulaically just say these 2 things, but what first comes to mind is finding a way to embrace Stoicism and have joy. So the problem with Stoicism is that you could become a grumpy, it's just, the grind of life and whatever. But Stoicism basically just says, be in charge of what you can be in charge of and let go of the stuff that you can't be in charge of. Right. And then the joy factor is also, like enjoying life and having happiness, like embracing happiness and joy and celebration and stuff like that, and not just being a curmudgeon of a stoic, but a joyful stoic is the best type of leader. There you go.
Okay, joyful stoic. I love it. Yeah, That's great.
That would be a wonderful monologue podcast, The Joyful Stoic, with Chad Johnson. And then our band that Jason didn't know he's going to be a part of.
Yes.
Touring. We'll have to tour in 2025, perhaps. Garbage Juice.
Garbage Juice.
Yes. Oh my.
We're sitting in the garbage juice.
That's really good. I love it.
Christian metalcore coming straight to you.
Sitting in the garbage juice, but Jesus came along and he saved us.
And that's our first lyric.
That's right. I'll open this up. Oh boy.
Oh, well, thank you, Chad, for being in the hot seat with
Thanks
Jason and I. Jason, great questions. Fantastic
Jason,
co-host you are.
Oh, this was so cool having this opportunity to interview you, Chad. I was looking forward to this. This is fantastic, man.
It's weird to be the answerer and not the questioner, because like I'm wanting to bounce questions and then I'm trying to behave by not. If I could have one question though, just to lighten the mood before we leave, because I asked about your scene in the background to your left, but to your right, you've got the basketball. Who signed the basketball?
Oh, it's an old Marquette Golden Eagles basketball. So I got the whole team on it.
Awesome.
From, back,
wow.
I don't know,
like in the 90s?
Probably early 2000s.
Early 2000s. Okay.
But yeah. Or actually, it might have been the 90s. It might have been, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, it was back when Tom Crean was their head coach. So his signature is a really big one on there. And I have to look through the rest of them. I don't know. It's funny, this stuff sits here and, I don't know.
I'm just curious because I don't remember. You remember the Bulls player, Derrick Rose? Did he play for Marquette?
No. Dwayne Wade was Marquette.
Yes, that's it. That's who it was. But so he would have maybe been on that basketball or
I don't think he is. I'd have to look. So Dwayne Wade, Chad, He played at Marquette. They made their Final Four run our freshman year in dental school, which should have been my senior year in undergrad.
Yes.
So I should have been going to
all the cool
those
games. And yeah, we had biochemistry tests.
Yeah, and instead, well, that's a story about me, so I'm going to skip it because I want to focus this on you, Chad. But we still have more time. Can I ask you more questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Regan, do you have time?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm not supposed to be really in office today. This is my secret day.
Oh, secret days. See, that's what I'm looking for with Chad. That's why I'm asking about secrets and things like that. So Regan has secret days, which I feel like we should be interviewing Regan at some point and diving into her secret days.
Regan's next. You have to come back again, and Regan's next. We made our goal in our company here. You don't have to put that on the air, Ricky. But yeah, we made our goal. So the prize for all employees was they got December 22nd to January 2nd off.
Wow.
So they're out. Yeah, but there was no question. I was like, podcasting with Jason, I am not missing this. This is great.
Do you know what?
Totally
I was
coming in.
Yesterday was our last clinical day of the year. So I'm taking next week off. But of course, this morning I had to get a text and it says, "Hey, can you re-cement a crown?" And I was like, just when you thought you were done. But
I wondered why you were in the office. I was expecting you to be in the home office. I'm like your house.
Me too.
Oh.
But I was like, well, fine, I'll go into the office and do this. Cause I thought next week I'm gone after Christmas, so I was like, I'm not gonna.
Does she know yet?
She does not know yet. She'll know on Christmas.
Jason, you know though, right? You know what's coming.
I'm taking Sarah to Iceland.
Oh, wow.
That's a surprise.
Good for you, man. That's a surprise. Let's say it on the computer. Or
no, the funny thing
he's already
is,
done a podcast about it.
The funny thing is, I'm really flirting with danger because I'm telling everyone but her. It seems like, there's 8 billion people around the world minus one that know the secret.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny.
Okay. The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Have you seen it?
It's
Ben Stiller movie. It's fantastic. It was a book, but they have an Iceland scene in it, and it's so cool. After watching that movie, I've never been to Iceland, but I said to my wife, I was like, "Hey, next trip Iceland," and she was like, "Nope, next trip beach. Every trip beach."
Right.
So we're like very one-dimensional.
There are beaches in Iceland. You can tell her
there
that.
are beaches.
I'm sure I'll sell her on that. Yeah.
There's hot springs. There's lots and lots of hot springs.
But yeah, you have to watch that movie before you go.
I can't wait.
Yeah,
I've already brought it up on the computer.
You'll love it. But one more question before we go. So Chad, obviously, as you normally being the interviewer and not the interviewee.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What question, man? What question would you want to ask yourself to be able to share with everyone?
This is going to be an inside joke for anyone who's listened since episode 1, but the answer is bacon.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, that was just a joke. What question? No, here's the thing. I roll with questions to where the interview goes. So I don't have a quintessential question that I ask people. I'm just trying, I don't know. The audio people can delay my non-response here in my
I'll do 3 claps when you're ready.
Right. What? Ask it again so I can frame it better in my mind.
Yeah. So I was saying, you're used to being the one asking all the questions, not the one sitting in the seat giving all the answers.
Right.
So now
I think you've done it. What makes you tick? What in the past is
Regan, what Chad's trying to say here is that we just crushed it. He has zero improvement on anything that we've already done. We try to be humble and not, like he was saying earlier.
It's not going to happen. Not
now. The masters,
that's right.
Jason, you did get him down to basically his 3rd level of why, as far as Chad's going to go. So you really did actually.
How about this?
Really, really good questions.
So how about this? What's next?
Yeah. Give it to us, Chad. What's next?
So what's next? No, I have to admit, you already, we dove into that to some degree, and at some point, grandparenthood has got to be the coolest thing. And I really look forward to that, but that's a ways out. So what's next? this next year, taking Gabe and the family to his 50th state. The girls also have Idaho left. That's all that they will have left. And then they'll have been to all 50 states.
Idaho. Wow. You really saved the big one for last.
I know, it's just it's a hard state to hit to, you know, like we love Montana, and then you know, you have to go over the mountain range to get to Idaho. And then let's see. So I'm excited that I just finished coaching my middle one, Sophia, her last year of basketball. So all I have left is actually Daphne for coaching 5th and 6th grade. And then I'm done like with coaching in a formal setting, like forever. And what's next is, I have an associate coming in this next year, and he should be starting in the next month. I'm excited about that, and replicating the practice to include him in. And from there, dialing in my like number of days worked and the schedule and stuff like that to just, you know, cultivate it into the best, like a garden, cultivating it into the best work day that I can. And making the most of, you know, every hour that I'm here, so that way I can book it out and enjoy family time. I don't know. I think that might be the best that I could answer for now. I don't know, you know, per se the 5-year plan or anything like that. So
what's the 5-year plan, Chad? I'm joking.
No. I'll actually answer that. So like, I've talked with my family seriously about running for some kind of political office.
Yes, there we go. Come on now.
This has been a while. This has been a dream in the making.
Yes, it has. But
you and Donald Miller should run at the same time, because Donald also has political aspirations.
Well, but he's probably more on a national level, and he's got a big. I'm talking like on a state kind of thing. So you know, I don't need to crush it. You know,
baby steps.
Sure. So for that, we've decided as a family to wait until the kids are basically like graduated from high school at least, which then gives me about a 10-year. Also, I have a huge stack of books that is never ending that probably everyone has that, you know, like I'd like to read. For our 20th anniversary within the next 5 years. So for our 20th anniversary, we're going to take the whole family to Italy. And my big dream is I'd like to take off 9 weeks in the summer and do Italy, like basically the whole summer. And then so right now, all of us are learning Italian. So that way we can make the most of our experience there. And so we're doing that. So I don't know, big stuff like that, travel, books. I'm getting into gardening. I've got a greenhouse coming in the spring that I'm
beautiful, man.
Yeah, just stuff like that. So those are some weird tangents of like long-term plans.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Yeah. Cultivating fruit, cultivating vegetables, cultivating life, cultivating
life.
Yeah, right.
The grapes of wrath. And antioxidants from stress.
All right, you guys. Well, I want to say thank you for allowing me this opportunity today. This was an incredible opportunity, Chad. I love you, man.
Thanks, buddy. Love you too. It's always
so much fun for me. So much fun for me.
It is.
Last time when I did this, my wife walked by and saw me like laughing or something. She was like, "Jason, whatever you were doing in there, do that.
Keep doing it."
She's like,
did she say that?
Yeah, she's like, "We're having so much fun in there." She's like, "Keep doing it." Because I mean, you have to understand, most of the time when I come into my office, I'm sitting here working, and you know, and so it's kind of cool.
She probably saw a younger you that, you know, gets kind of weeded out over time, you know, and so it's good to bring Stoicism, joy. Stoicism, joy. Yep.
Joy eternal.
Joy eternal, forevermore.
Forevermore.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Everyday Practices Podcast. Chad and I are here every week thanks to our community of listeners just like you, and we'd love your help. It would mean the world if you can help spread the word by sharing this episode with a fellow dentist and leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. Do you have an extraordinary story you'd like to share or feedback on how we can make this podcast even more awesome? Drop us an email at podcast@productivedentist.com. And don't forget to check out our other podcasts from Productive Dentist Academy at productivedentist.com/podcasts. See you next week.